So hello, welcome back. Like I said, hopefully you've clicked on from the last video, and if not, and this is the first one, this is me, Ben Beckman, talking about all the players who have qualified for the World Tour Finals 2025, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the pairs that have qualified for the men's doubles. Now, for me, the men's doubles is the only discipline where the defending champions aren't returning when they could have. That's quite an important distinction. Last year, we saw the Danish pair of Kim Astrup and Anna Skaret Rasmussen win. They were unable to qualify for it this year. The mixed doubles is the only other discipline where the defending champions won't be there. But that's because the defending champions were Zheng Siwei and Wang, and they have since retired. It was their last dance on the World Tour, I may add, because they did win the recent China National Games, but it was their last dance at the World Tour Finals last year, which they went on to win. So they obviously weren't going to be in a position to qualify. So the men's doubles is the only discipline where the defending champions were unable to qualify. But that doesn't mean that we haven't got 8 pairs here that are absolutely brilliant, and it's going to be a fiery and exciting men's doubles tournament at the World Tour Finals. So let's start at the top. As always, I'm going to go in order that they qualified. So the first pair qualified as first, and it is unsurprisingly Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae of Korea. I believe they are the only pair, only players to have qualified at top spot as the world champions. All other disciplines, the world champions weren't able to qualify on the top spot. They're also not just the world champions, they're also the world number ones. So they're the only players here ticking both boxes to qualify as number one for the World Tour Finals. So they're world champions, world number ones, and world tour number ones. They're ticking absolutely every box. And when you hear the year they've had, you'll understand why. Like Seong, as a pair, they're going to, if they can win at the World Tour Finals, they're going to win 11 titles together. So they're also trying to match Kenta Moto's 2019 world record. They've already matched a 37-year record from 1988 of 10 titles in a year in the men's doubles, and that was Li Yongbo and Tian Bingyi. Now, that record by the Chinese pair did involve an Olympic tester event, exhibition event. In the 1988 Seoul Olympics, badminton was going to go into the Olympics in 1992, and so they held a tester event or an exhibition event in 1988, which the Chinese pair won. So does that technically count? It has, according to BRF. Still an incredible year those two had. But yeah, no, the Korean pair have matched it, but can they beat it? And even more than this, Seo Jae as an individual could get himself a new Guinness World Record, because him and Kim Won-ho are on 10 titles, but Seo Jae also won the Thailand Super 300, the Thai Masters, with Jin Yong this year. So Seo Jae is already equal to Kenta Moto. He has 11 titles this year, so if he wins World Tour Finals, that would make it 12, which would be a new Guinness World Record. That would be absolutely insane. Similar to Seong, their win-loss percentage record is also north of 90%. They're currently on 67 wins and have only suffered 7 losses, which is 90.54%. So if they win the World Tour Finals, winning all 5 matches, they will end with 72 wins from 79, which is 91.14%, which would put them just behind the Minions 2018 year of 91.3%. where they won 63 wins from 69 matches. Now, quick side note, when it comes to best win-loss records in the modern era in the men's doubles, there are a few pairs that are above that, but it's only really that Minions 2018 year where the number of overall matches in a year is anywhere close to the number that the Koreans have played. I think the number one spot, the total number of matches they played in a year would have been like 20 to 30. Obviously, the Koreans are playing north of 70 matches, so it's like almost triple. It's at least double the amount, so that's absolutely crazy. They're still able to keep that win-loss percentage. So another achievement they could achieve as a pair, if that's not enough for you guys, they could also replicate the Daddy's insane 2019 achievement, where they won all 3 majors of the same year, the All England, the World Championships, and the World Tour Finals. And if I'm not mistaken, the Daddies are the only pair to have ever achieved that feat. So could Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae join that? What an incredible year they would have. You know, they would match the Guinness World Record as a pair for 11 titles in a year. They would have one of the best win-loss percentage records of a year. Seo Jae could make a new Guinness World Record and they could also replicate an achievement only ever done once by a legendary pair. And what's even crazier is that let's not forget that this partnership only started this year. This is their first year as a partnership. They were a pair back in 2017, but that's like 8 years ago, and they've had many years and different partners since. So the fact they've just rejoined, and in their first year they have one of the most dominant and successful years in all of men's doubles history, and that will be the case even if they are unable to win the World Tour Finals. Absolutely just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I actually, when I said that, I was like, I actually forgot that this was their first year together. I was like, no, they've been playing together for wait a minute. No, this was their first year. The Malaysian Open 2000 was their first tournament of the year, and they won it. Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, no, they will be the heavy favourites for the title, but there are a few pairs who have beaten and troubled them this year. Two I've made specific note of, and that's Aranchar and So Yik. They were a pair that beat them at the Singapore Open. And then you've got Alfian and Fikri, who beat them in the quarterfinals of the China Open, the only Super 1000 that the Koreans weren't able to win. And actually, Fikri, as a player himself, has the only player to have beaten Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae twice, and he did it with different partners. He beat him, like I said, with Fajar Alfian at China Open, and then he beat them at the Sudirman Cup, partnering with Bagas Maulana. That was a pretty important and sensational win for the Indonesian pair. So yeah, no. But aside from those players, they will be, I think, the heavy favourites. They're just so adaptable. They're super strong, and every time I watch them, they seem to be getting better and better and better. And yeah, they're going to be difficult. Seo Sun-jae, I think last time he played the World Tour Finals, because I don't think he played. Did he play last year? I think he might have done. I can't quite remember. He might have done. But the year before, in 2023, he won the title with Kam Min-hyuk. So he's also got experience of winning this title. So moving on, number 2, Aranchar and So Yik of Malaysia. They're one of the pairs I literally just mentioned that have beaten the Korean pair of Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae. And they've had a pretty solid 2025. They are the Asian champions. They won the Asian Championships. They are currently ranked world number 2. And they've reached 5 finals and won 2 titles. And those 2 titles came at the Singapore Open Super 750. That was where they beat Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae. And the Thailand Open as well. They've reached 4 semi-finals on top of that. So, like I said, a very consistent year for them. I would say that their second half to the year was a bit better than their first half. I think there was some injury issues. And I'm pretty sure that I think there's been talks about some injury issues with Aranchar's shoulder or something as of late recently. And it's why I'd say their last few results haven't been as good as they had that really nice patch. Like I said, when they won those 2 titles, they were very close to each other. They had a really good run in the summer, heading into the World Championships. And since then, it's not like it's been terrible, but they haven't been, in the limelight as much. They haven't been reaching as many finals or getting to the latter stages as much. So there will be some doubts. I think that's why some people probably might think, oh, their chance a bit low. They're always capable. They are a really good pair. And I think that what they've done really well as a pair is develop their weaknesses as a pair. So Yik's front court play has got far, far better. He's far more creative and much more effective there at the net. And I think just in general, their ability to play in their different favoured formations, etc. is good. And there's obviously been the appointment of Harry IP, the former Indonesian coach in the men's doubles discipline, who's done wonders for the Malaysian men's doubles team. And you can see the impact and the influence he's had on not just Aranchar and So Yik who qualified, but there's another Malaysian pair definitely had an effect on them. So Aranchar and So Yik will be playing one more tournament before the World Tour Finals, and that's the SEA Games. And that also goes for the other Malaysian pair that have qualified, Man Wei Chong and Kai Wen T. It'll be interesting to see how they do that, as it could give them much needed confidence heading into the World Tour Finals. They were seen as probably the heavy favourites. I think Malaysia were the only team that had sent a really strong men's doubles pair, but now they've been the last minute entry in the men's doubles from Indonesia of Gutama and Isfahani, another pair who will be going to the World Tour Finals. And that's obviously made things tougher, as according to Harry IP. So if this Malaysian pair or the other Malaysian pair are able to win that tournament, I think that's going to be really, really important especially for Aranchar and So Yik to give them that kind of confidence that they can go to the World Tour Finals and deliver the kind of performance that they are capable of. And it's going to be doubly important because not only has Malaysia not had a champion at the World Tour Finals since 2016, and that was Govi Shem and Tan Wee Kiong, and that was even when it was Super Series, but for this pair specifically, they've never qualified from the group stages in the 5 times they've played the World Tour Finals before. And 3 out of those 5, they've come dead last in their group. I know last year they also did, I think they came last, but there was a withdrawal of a Chinese pair, and they had actually were in a good position, so it's dead last makes it sound worse than it was, but it doesn't get around the fact that they've never qualified out of the group stages at the World Tour Finals. So I think with their recent form, that history, people are a little bit doubtful over them, but they are certainly capable. And whilst the SEA Games isn't a big tournament, I think that's going to be quite an important one for them to win, to give them the confidence heading into the World Tour Finals. At least kind of turn their confidence around and give them that little much needed boost. So moving on, number 3, Satwik Sairaj Rankireddy and Shetty of India. Now for them this year, they've had 2 finals but no titles. But they've had a pretty solid year. They've reached 5 semi-finals and 3 quarterfinals, and they also won the World Championship bronze. Now, I've said this in every time I've spoken about them, so it might sound like a broken record if you're a regular viewer of my videos, but since the Olympic Games last year, they have had a difficult time, injuries, illness, family bereavements, and all that kind of stuff. And so the fact they're able to they've been slowly turning the game around, and their coach changed as well, actually, Matthias Bo after the Olympics, who had been such an influence on them, decided to kind of stop coaching. And they have had, what's his name? Tam Kin He, a Malaysian coach who was their coach beforehand, come back. So I think that's kind of stabilised them a little bit. But for me, there's obviously been those issues for them. But what's positive, I think, for the Indians is that many people, not so long ago, when they reached a number of semi-finals, were going, why can't they get over that hurdle? They keep getting to the semi-finals and then they seem to just hit a wall. They get to semis and their game kind of falls apart, or there's these moments. That changed recently because they then got to 2 finals, but they lost both of those. And now the conversation has shifted to, now they're getting to the finals, what is it? Why can't they get over the hurdle? And actually this was a question that I answered in one of my recent videos. And I won't go over the points too much, but I basically said that they just keep giving away crucial runs of points, and I feel that when pairs can suck out speed and lay it at them with not much pace, that tends to be something that exacerbates that. Maybe also, like I said, there's these hurdles. Maybe it does become a mental hurdle. Once they finally get over it, then a new hurdle. So before it was the semis, they finally got over that hurdle, and then they get over it again, but then the final becomes a new hurdle. So I guess the question is the World Tour Finals where they finally get over that hurdle and can finish the year strong and actually finish it with a World Tour title. They're certainly capable. They've got all the weaponry. They've got a fantastic attack. They're pretty solid in defense too. They're very organised, and when they're playing really good badminton, they're very difficult to beat. But like I pointed out, there are those little things where if pairs can suck out some of the speed or can stay solid enough, the Indians give away too many runs of points. And like I said, at these World Tour Finals, there's going to be no easy matches, and there's a number of pairs. Top of that list is the pair qualified 1, Kimono Sosinjay, that are absolutely brilliant at just, if they need to suck out speed and take out and block and defend really well, they can do that. Aaron Chan Suryik also have very good defense. That's why they've, generally speaking, have had a pretty good track record against the Indians. It's changed somewhat recently, but there's other pairs that are also very good at that, or are able to kind of make life difficult for the Indian pair in different ways. So yes, they're capable. Can they get over that final hurdle? They certainly can. It's going to be really difficult for them because, like throughout all these videos, everyone that's qualified is absolutely of the highest quality. But it'll be really interesting to see what level they bring to the final World Tour tournament. Number 4, another Malaysian pair, Man Wei Chong and Kai Wen T. For me, they had a good start to the year, but their second half, they're another one of those players or pairs that have had a season of 2 halves. Their opening half was pretty good, and their second half has fallen off a bit. Now, it has to be said, in recent tournaments. This is partly due to a quite big injury to Kai Wen-Ti, who actually tore his right calf. There was a 7-centimeter tear in his right calf, and he did that at the Arctic Open. Yet they continue to play to try and qualify for the World Tour Finals, and they have. So the risk, I saw a lot of articles where former players and others were like, is it worth the risk for further full rupture, full tear, just for a World Tour Finals? They have, obviously, they decided to go for that, and they have qualified, so it's kind of paid off. And from what I can see, he hasn't injured it any further. In fact, whilst that injury issue does raise concerns for me, and it dampens their chances, it also makes me question why Man Wei Chong and Kai Wen-Ti are playing the SEA Games. Now, like I said, I haven't seen any further reports of the injury, and a lot of these reports or news articles were from the beginning of November, so maybe the injury is okay. But I watched them play at the Australian Open, I think, where they reached the quarterfinal, and they definitely weren't at 100%. I actually thought it was Kai Wen-Ti's knee. It looked like he was hobbling around, but it was his calf, and I could still see that wasn't 100% in Australia. So I'm kind of really questioning their selection for the SEA Games. I thought it would be better. That's obviously not going to affect their World Tour Finals, and if the risk they took by carrying on playing was to qualify for the World Tour Finals, surely that should be the priority. So I'm just a little bit confused as to why they're playing. If anyone has further updates, or there's been further reports on the fact that the injury is no longer an issue, then please do let me know. But I'm just a little bit like, I haven't seen reports to the contrary that it is good, and the fact that it was only a month ago that he had this tear in his calf, and also based on what I saw their performance in the Australian Open, I'm just a little bit confused by that. But looking at their World Tour final hopes, based on how they've been playing, I mean, with the injury, if that injury's not even, if it's not 100%, I would say they've got no chance of doing well. I wouldn't even be surprised if they end up withdrawing halfway through the group stages. That's how I see it. It's just, I'm not so sure. So moving on, Sabah Gutama and Mohammad Reza Pahlavi Isfahani of Indonesia. So they backed up. They had a really fantastic breakthrough year in 2024, where they started the year where they couldn't qualify for Super 750 or Super 1000, and they ended the year by qualifying for the World Tour Finals. And they've backed that up with a very solid 2025, obviously qualifying for the World Tour Finals. They reached 3 finals, and the Indonesia Open Super 1000 was by far the biggest one. They also reached the final of the Super 300 in Macau and the Super 500 at the Hangzhou Open. They also reached 2 semi-finals and 4 quarter-finals. And one of those semi-finals was their last event in Australia, where they had a close semi-final match with Fajar Alfian and Fikri, another pair from Indonesia who have qualified. I mentioned earlier that it's been a last-minute decision for them to play the SEA Games. I think I've seen a few reports of a number of Indonesian pairs or players being asked if they would want to suddenly play the SEA Games. It's always been historically more recent times, I'd say, where Indonesia have sent more of a younger squad to gain experience. It's like a perfect event. But maybe because I know Malaysia is sending quite a few strong players, that Indonesia were kind of like, well, okay, well then we will also do the same. And I have seen reports of them trying to invite lots of them, and a few of them have turned it down. I think Alfian and Fikri, the other Indonesian pair qualified, have said no, probably because they want to focus on the World Tour Finals. But Gutama and Isfahani, 2 independent pairs actually, will go. And so, like I said about Aaron Chan and So Yik, and to an extent, Man Wei Chong, Kai Wen-Ti, who will be playing the SEA Games, it's not a massively important event. It's not going to have too much. But I think obviously we back up their, the fact that they reached the Hangzhou Open Super 500 and the Australian Open, 2 relatively recent tournaments they've done well in. If they can then win the SEA Games, that's another bit of confidence for them, and that's only going to feed in to their game heading into the World Tour Finals, because confidence in all sport is such a huge thing, and it doesn't matter the level of tournament. If you finish top the podium and you've played pretty well and you come away with a gold, you just feel really excited and you can't wait to get back on court, and so that's always going to help. And the flip side's true. If you're a bad tournament, say the SEA Games, they play terribly and they lose, it could, even though it shouldn't, it could very well have a knock-on effect. I have to give credit as well to their coach, which is Hengry Setiawan, the Indonesian legend. He will definitely and most likely be there in Hangzhou. He has experience of winning the World Tour Finals on numerous occasions. So can he help Gutama and Isfahani, replicate what he did? It'll be difficult for them, but the fact they reached the final of the Indonesian Super 1000, one of the biggest tournaments of the year, just shows their level. They're definitely capable. Like I said, I will keep repeating myself on that, and I probably sound like an idiot, but every pair, bar maybe one or two that I've said, and player has the chance to do well at this tournament. So moving on, number 6, Liang and Wang of China. This is the only event where China hasn't got 2 players or pairs qualified. The men's doubles is struggling a little bit, and actually even this pair have been struggling a little bit. They are the Olympic silver medalists, but by their own standards, like I said, they haven't had the best of 2025s. In fact, I think when I ask questions for Beckman's breakdowns about what has happened to so-and-so, and in everyone I usually get a question of what's happened to so-and-so, usually if they had a bad tournament. But I think when it comes to this pair, I've been asked that question about them the most. Almost, like, what's happened to Liang Wang? Why have Liang Wang fallen off? All this kind of stuff. Now, it's a fair question to ask because I think, obviously, they're Olympic silver medalists, and before then, they were like bottom ones and doing really well, and when they burst onto the scene, they were always getting to that stage and were one of the best pairs in the world. I think even in 2023, they reached the final, I'm pretty sure, of the World Tour Finals. So there has been a little bit of a slippage in there, but they did show what they're capable of in Hong Kong, where they won, and that was their only title of 2025. But then again, following that tournament, they haven't really. I thought they might be able to take that on and really push forward, but it's been a string of up and down results. When it comes to their 2025 season, I think they have shown some good badminton, even when they did win, and I finally answered that question, and I've always said I've seen signs of good stuff. When they won the Hong Kong Open, I thought they were good. I thought Liang Weikang looked a little bit more solid in that tournament, and he's shown signs of that as well throughout. He's sometimes been the weak link when it comes to the big tournaments, and Wang Chan, as we know, is a very flamboyant and creative player, which goes hand in hand with some strings of mistakes. And whilst I do think they have shown some really good badminton, I don't think it's ever been, bar one period of tournaments where I did actually question what were they even doing. I think their good performances get lost in a sea of mediocre performances, or they're in positions to win matches, but they just can't win them. So they've had a number of, I've watched them, good matches, close matches with good pairs, but they always seem to, most of the time, come out on the losing end. And so I think that's what leads to these questions about them. In terms of the World Tour Finals, we have to see what level they can bring. Could history repeat itself? Like I said, 2023, they did reach the final of the World Tour Finals, and that's where they lost to the world champions of that year, Kim Won-hyuk and Seo Sun-jae. This year, Seo Sun-jae is still world champion with Kim Won-ho. So maybe, could we see history repeat itself and see Liang Weikang and Wang Chan play against Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae in the final? Again, we'll need to know the draw, and there's lots of other factors that will go into that, but it's possible that we could see history repeat itself there. But for me, when it comes to these pairs, I have my doubts against the Malaysian pair, but Man Wei Chong and Kai Wen-tin, but that's because of the injury issues. When it comes to performance, this pair, it could either be really good, or it could just be meh, and I think that's the best way. I don't think it's going to be poor, but it could just be, meh. Right, moving on. Chiu Xingche and Wang Qilin of Chinese Taipei. Again, this is another new pair following the Paris Olympics, where one half of this pair, Wang Qilin, created history by becoming the first pair. Him and Li Yang, oh God, became the first pair to win back-to-back Olympic titles. Now, when I first saw this pair play, not long after the Paris Olympics, I did quite like them, and I've continued to like them through 2025. They have played a lot of tournaments. They've played 21. That's almost 3 times as many as the last pair that qualified, who I'll be talking about next. That's quite remarkable. But, we do see a lot of players. I spoke about Chou Chen from Chinese Taipei playing a lot of tournaments. I think this pair play a lot because they're still relatively new, and so they're probably trying to gain as much experience as possible, trying to kind of get a footing for themselves, get a feel for it, Chair is a completely different player to Liang, both in terms of the fact he's left-handed, but build, skill-wise, approach to badminton, it's been a complete change for Wang Qilin. But I think he's actually adapted to that very, very well, and they're really starting to link up. They're two very tall players, right and left combination, which is another thing that's different to Liang and Wang. But they are slowly, every time I watch them, I think they're slowly finding their form. Wang Qilin, as we know, is absolutely incredible, but Chiu is very nimble and quick around the net for someone so tall. He looks a little bit stiff and cumbersome when you first watch him, but he's able to kind of read and put himself into positions quite often. I don't think many people are expecting too much from them at this tournament, but if they can get out of the group stages, they could be very dangerous. So yeah, no, looking at their results of the year, it has been a sea of first and second round losses, but when they do have a good tournament, they've either won or reached the semi-finals. So they won 2 titles in Taipei and Hilo. So Hilo Open's relatively recent. That was a very good win for them. But it's like, when you look at their results, you have loads of first, second rounds, but then when they do well, they do very well. So that's why I say, if they can get through the groups, then they're going to be really dangerous. That's when they really come alive. I think that feeds into Wang Qilin as a pretty big tournament player. So they're definitely a pair that not many people, like I said, not look at to win, but they're dangerous, and they're a pair that could make life difficult for some of the more favoured pairs. And lastly, Fajar Alfian and Mohammad Shahibul Fikri of Indonesia. They're like the complete opposite to the Chinese Taipei pair I just talked of, because they managed to qualify after only 8 tournaments played. Now, you can have 14 tournaments go towards your qualification spot, so the fact that in just over half those amount of tournaments this pair were able to qualify, that is absolutely incredible. They're a very new pair, understandably. They only formed their partnership at the China Open, and that was just due to circumstance, but because they won that tournament Super 1000 after the World Championships, the Indonesian coaches decided to make them a pair and to kind of give them more run of tournaments to kind of see how they do. And they've done really well, and I think it's been confirmed that going into 2026, they will be a full-time pair. So in their short time together, they've reached 5 finals, won 1 title, which was the China Open 1000, reached 2 quarterfinals and a semi-final. So they are only one of 2 pairs who have qualified for these World Tour finals and beaten Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae. And like I said to you, I think right at the start, Fikri is the only player to beat that pair multiple times and with multiple partners. So they're probably one of the pairs that people were looking to stop Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae. However, I think if they're going to do that, I think it's going to have to come before a final, either in the group stages or in the semi-final. Most likely the semis. And the reason I say that is that whilst Alfian and Fikri won their first tournament together, they beat Kim Won-ho, Seo Jae, and they won a tournament, the China Open 1000. Since then, those 4 finals, they've lost every single time. And I spoke about this in another video, another breakdown. Was a number of those finals, they were probably the favourite, or they went into that tournament, went into that final playing good badminton. The most recent example, the Australian Open, they beat Rankireddy and Shetty in the quarterfinals playing really good badminton. And then they head into the final where they're playing their very young, inexperienced pair of Raymond Indra and Nicolas Yauquin, and they lost. And I felt watching that match, it was surprising. They weren't able to really deliver the kind of tactics I thought would win, or they weren't able to kind of change things around or do something to stop the young Indonesian pair. It wasn't like they played really badly, but it just wasn't the kind of performance you expect from 2 very experienced players against a less experienced pair. And so it's kind of brought up a little bit of doubt over them as to when they get to finals, is there suddenly a knockoff in their level? So for me, their performances in their finals just don't match up to usually how they play in the build-up to that final. In those last 4 tournaments, or the 4 tournaments where they reached since the China Open, if you watch their matches in the earlier rounds and then you compare it to the final, there's a bit of difference. That's why I think if they play Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae in the final, then I think the chances of them winning are lower than if they to face them either in the group stages or even in the semi-final. So I think it's possible that we could see them be in the final with the Koreans. Again, we need to wait for the draw, But I think if they're going to be the pair to stop the Koreans, I think it's going to have to come before the final. So there we have it, guys. Me talking about all the men's doubles pairs that are qualified for the World Tour Finals. As with my other videos and the ones coming up, please do let me know your thoughts on all these pairs who have qualified, your chances, etc., etc. And next on, coming up on the screen very, very shortly, it should be somewhere around here, is going to be the video link to the women's doubles. So I'll be talking about all 8 pairs that have qualified for the World Tour Finals in women's doubles. I hope to see you there. Yeah, see you there, guys.